Make a long story short, I went.
Actually, that first trip to Guatemala, I was with him. We were serving in an orphanage. It was just amazing just seeing the love of Jesus on these children's faces and that we were part of that.
And our last night that we had a time of celebration, of course, and I began to cry. And I couldn't stop. I knew I was in God's hands. And he was calling me to come home and tell my family.
When he came back, I could definitely tell a difference.
And I'll never forget him coming back and tell my mom he wants us all to go.
Dad took a traditional cargo van. He had windows installed in the side of it. He put plywood down on the floor, mounted seats to the floor.
Mind you, if you hit the brakes, you're all going flying out. But they would not move from side to side.
On our trip to Guatemala, Mom and Dad prayed the whole way.
And anytime we were stopped, I do remember him just, just praying.
They were just, God, keep us safe. God, protect us. God, do this. And one point along the way, we're going along and the brakes went out in the van. And literally, my dad's pedal went to the floor and he had a hard time stopping. When we finally got the van stopped, we pulled the tire off and there was this brake line that was that had broken. And so we literally took the brake caliper off, took the brake shoes off, and folded this over and put a little clamp on it and clamped that brake line off and went ahead and went on our trip. And we drove that for the next 2 months that way. And that's innovation. That's faith. That's trusting God. Those are things that you'll never forget. If I can encourage anybody, take the opportunity, never say no.
We would meet every Monday morning at 6 a.m. before the other employees, the salespeople came in, just to pray. And I'm embarrassed to say that many of those times I fell asleep while we were praying, but it taught me something. And here I am, 57 years old today, and I'm remembering things that I learned back then.
But it wasn't just working hard. It was doing it with God, praying like it all depends on God.
My dad taught us boys, my whole family really, a principle about work hard, pray hard. 2 things happened every day for those years. You went to the mailbox to get the mail, and you called the bank every morning, seeing how much money they needed in order to cover the checks. And I recall in those years, again, 84, 85, somewhere in there, my dad one day just ran out of ideas.
I remember one Saturday morning, Don, my older brother, and myself and Dad and Mom were sitting around the kitchen table. And with tears in his eyes, I remember him looking at Don and I, my mom, and just saying, I think this is it. I think we're going to lose it all.
I recall my dad weeping because he ran out of ideas and we were dying fast. And he said, I'm going to go to a hotel out in Eureka. He picked the cheapest one he could find because we didn't have any money. And he went there for 3 or 4 days, if I recall. Nobody heard from him. We didn't have cell phones in those days, but nobody heard from him. But we knew, me and my mom and my brothers, my family, that he went there just to find a place where he could try to connect with God, try to find out, God, what are you doing? What's going on? Why is it not getting better? Why does it keep getting worse?
And we just couldn't pay our bills. And the bank president would call me up and he'd say, Don, we need $5,000 by 2 o'clock this afternoon. I got checks here I don't know what to do with, he said. I set them out by faith, hoping that everybody would get their money, but it didn't work that way. I didn't know how to pay my bills. I didn't have no money. I was out there by myself.
I was in a Christian high school, and I was taking French class, and one of the requirements for the classes that I needed a French Bible. And I remember going home, had a couple weeks to come up with that $3, but my parents, things were so tight, I knew I could not ask them for $3. And so I just kept praying, God, I need $3. I didn't have a job, had no money, kept checking my purse. No, there was nothing there. So finally, it was the night before, and I reached down in my purse one more time, and I realized that there had been a hole in the bottom coin section of my purse, and there was $3 there. I was just so touched. I'm like, God, you provided for me. And, right now we can look at this big, beautiful building, and we can say, $3, what's that? But for me back then, that $3 was, I believe, a springboard of faith. because I believe it developed in me a faith that I would have never developed otherwise.
There was a man, he became a partner of mine in business, and he gave me money. As money went on out, I was trying to pay it back. Thousands of dollars he was giving me. He walked up to me one day at church, handed me a check for $10,000. This is the last amount I'm gonna ever give you. Don't ask for no more. I didn't ask for that.
We didn't have enough money to go to Jiffy Lube or to any place to get oil changes on these vans that the salesman drove. So every Monday when the salesman would come in to reload their vans for the week, at least one van, if not two, was ready to have their oil changed. So my dad or me or one of my brothers would climb down in that hole, and it was a mess.
Don had just called me on a telephone, and I told Don, and he said, we don't have it. And I said, well, I'm gonna pray and I'll call you when I get to Joplin. I got praying and crying out to God, you gotta help us. And God said, this will be the last time you borrow money. And I got so full of joy. And I called Don on the phone and I told Don, I just got a word from God that we're not gonna borrow money anymore.
Well, our company started in debt. In the first 10 years, it was massive debt.
You're only in debt if during down times you cannot liquidate for the amount that you owe. We weren't in debt just 70%. It was like 120%. Like, I don't even think people would bought our company. That's horrible debt. When you've got this weight over your shoulders and there's no way out. Even if you liquidate, you're not getting out.
One day, a lady, her name was June, I don't know her last name.